Christian Walker. My understanding, I'm not a sports guy. Herschel Walker's his dad, very famous big football player, right? I don't know. Pop is an idiot. I'm not as sports savvy as you guys would think. I know I'm 6'4", but, you know, yeah, you know, I'm not exactly into sports. So, just to get off of this, so he's a black conservative. Now, one thing I take really big issue with is people dismissing him being, like, basically saying he's not really black because he's conservative. I don't like that. I hate that kind of rhetoric. I think it's gross and I think it's disgusting. Okay, I hate it when people try to invalidate somebody's particular identity because they don't align with the status quo idea. It's like, oh, well, you're not really black because you don't believe in particular black issues. Identity politics are very toxic, and they're not good. That being said, I do not particularly care for some of this guy's content, especially the way that he presents the content. I think it's very inflammatory, intentionally divisive, and I don't think that it helps him because when you have one individual who's inflammatory and then you get feedback from another inflammatory group and then everybody's just divisive and divided and it just becomes this big-ass mess. And that's what I think kind of happens here. Again, you shouldn't be invalidating him specifically because he's black. I hate that. It's so stupid, right? So let me do a sound check. Is that loud enough? Yeah, Donald Trump. Okay, so he supports Trump. I don't care about that. That's fine. I really don't have an issue with people who support Trump. A lot of times people are like, oh, Trump supporters are, you know, ignorant, bigoted, blah, 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 blah. My thing is like people have particular values that they assign to particular people and their beliefs based on where they come from. So you'll see like a lot of you know, progressives be like, Trump is a racist because like we're really smart, and we can derive a particular narrative based off of his words, and we know some people are deriving that narrative as well. And listen, man, some people just voted for Trump because Trump was talking about emboldening the middle class, and you have two shitty options, and people are always going to be after their best interests, especially when they are being siphoned from wealth, right? So if you have an issue with anything, have an issue not necessarily with the choices that we have. Well, yeah, with the choices that we have more than who those people are. Just the fact that these are the only choices that we get. That's what I would say. So I'm going to do this one first. Let's do this one first.
So as always, we find out that all the information we've heard about the Breonna Taylor case has been a lie.
So very clearly, rather inflammatory. Okay, here's what I want to say, right? First and foremost, we need to keep something very much in mind from a very fundamental level. Okay? When it comes to cases like the Breonna Taylor one, basically right after it happened, it was going to be a lawsuit. So in America, in our legal system, we are encouraged to lie as much as possible to make each side look as good as possible, right? So when you wade through all the issues, it's not like finding out that there's some kind of a nuanced lie isn't necessarily as much of an issue as like the whole framing of the entire thing. And what happens is people who are conservative, when they see that there's a lie about Breonna Taylor, they hyper-fixate on that, and they don't care about the lies that are on their side. Just as a progressive, when they see a lie that it comes to the police officer side, they hyper-fixate on that, rather than also hold their party accountable. So it's this issue of both sides being encouraged to lie to each other, and it creates like this problem, and that's one of the things that contributes to the divide.
Mainstream media has lied. Celebrities have lied.
Right, and the police have lied as well. Let's keep in mind that the warrant was based on a false pretense, right? Just keep that out there. They said that the Postal Service confirmed that there were drugs in those packages. That confirmation was never actually made. They say, well, maybe some other post office person said it, but again, we have no confirmation. It's all speculative. So there's lies on both sides. I would say that the lies from the police officer sides is worse, but still, let's keep that in mind.
And social justice, social media influencers have lied. The cops...
I mean, if I was going to be a stickler, I'd say, did they lie or did they misrepresent the facts because somebody else misrepresented the facts to them? Just saying.
Did knock on her door.
Okay, well, the knock on your door thing was never really a contested issue because it was a no-knock warrant. The announcement was more of an issue than the knock.
Boyfriend shot.
So let's kind of bring it to that because he just skipped over the announcement part. That's the real issue. No-knock warrants, you still have to announce, right? I know it was a no-knock, but you still have to announce. Here's what I'm going to say. Of the 12 people, 12 witnesses interviewed, 1 of 12 said that the police officers announced themselves, okay? We also have to keep in mind, and because we don't have a body camera, we can't confirm this, which is a broken system issue rather than the police on the ground floor mismanagement issue. Okay. We don't know how long they knocked for, how loudly they knocked for, how long they announced, or how loudly they announced. And because we have no body camera, we can't take very, very necessary details like that into consideration. Okay? You need time. Okay? There should have been body cameras the whole time. And I think that both sides can agree that this tragedy, at the very least, you should always have a body camera because your camera's not going to lie. Okay?
At the cops first.
We already knew that he shot at the cops first. He shot once. They shot back 25 times. I believe they hit her 8 times. Now, again, with what we had just established, where I genuinely believe that the boyfriend didn't know that they were cops, specifically because he called the cops and he was like, people are breaking into my house, that it was in perceived self-defense. And he had a legally obtained firearm. He was a legal gun owner, and his Second Amendment right allows him to protect himself from people breaking in. And again, the warrant was based on a falsification that the post office had confirmed that there were drugs in those packages. So I'm just saying, all these things need to be pulled into context when we talk about this situation.
Breonna Taylor was not sleeping in her bed. She
Who cares? She was probably asleep and then woke up and ran out.
was standing in the hallway, and her boyfriend used her as a human shield.
Yeah, that part is very, very intentionally hyperbolic, so that this is the problem. That part is never going to be true, right? The boyfriend never used her as a human shield. That is what you say to shift blame onto the to the boyfriend, right? Rather than to actually acknowledge that the cops killed somebody. Regardless of which side that you sit on, acknowledge it. And a United States citizen was killed to the people whose job it is to protect United States citizens. That's an objective fact. Okay? Let's not diminish that. Then this is what that does. This diminishes that.
When the facts were presented to a grand jury, they found that the officers were not guilty of murder.
Okay, so no, I wouldn't, that's, again, the problem I think with the Breonna Taylor case is more that the system is broken than anything else. The system apparently allowed them to push through a false warrant and did not put any level of accountability for the judge who signed the warrant based on a false pretense or the police officers who proposed that warrant. The officers themselves being sued, pure scapegoat. They were purely scapegoated for a broken administrative system, right? That's the problem, and we're not talking about that. The system is broken. No-knock warrants are bullshit. I know they're gone now. Plainclothes police officers in this situation, I think that it's rather bullshit as well. But even if you don't agree with that, body cams need to happen. All these things that contributed to like a poor execution of a warrant that was based on a lie, and with a system in place that allows for things like this to happen when they shouldn't have happened, right? At the very least, we should all agree that the law was fucking broken here. Or rather, that the laws are broken. Not that the law was broken. The laws themselves are broken. They're flawed. Okay?
It was not murder. It was self-defense.
Okay. I mean, I suppose self-defense once the guy shot at them, I guess. But again, based on all the pretenses of them not announcing at least, very least loudly enough, because only 1 in 12 people heard them. Let's keep that in mind.
Breonna Taylor dated 2 criminals, both of whom were drug dealers.
Here's the problem, right? Okay, so the names of both of these individuals are Kenneth Walker, her boyfriend when she passed away, when she was killed. And Jamarcus Glover. Jamarcus Glover, I don't think that they confirmed it yet that he was a drug dealer, but sure, let's say he is a drug dealer, right? Kenneth Walker's only charge was that he shot at a cop, and that was after they broke in, and then I believe he didn't know, and that was perceived self-defense. He's not a drug dealer. This is him intentionally, whether it's intentional or not, misrepresenting the facts when he's trying to call out progressives for misrepresenting the facts. And that's a big problem, honestly. That's all I'm saying, right? You can't sit here and scream and say the progressives were wrong while promoting misinformation as a conservative, because that's very, very, very wrong.
Both whom she laundered money for, and both whom she brought to trap houses. See information.
I'm not entirely sure how. Again, like that would have been things that if I don't even know if she's going to jail. I know that she was caught up with Jamarcus Glover with some drug stuff. That seems to be rather plain. Again, they didn't confirm that there are drugs in her package, which makes me believe a little hesitant, especially since they falsified the warrant. But let's say she was caught up in it. Maybe, but she broke up with him for a reason. If we're going to play a speculation game, then maybe that's why. Right? I'm just saying. And even if she was, she doesn't deserve to be killed in her own house due to a warrant based on a false pretense and a law that allows for a very gross action.
Information doesn't fit the mob's agenda. They're now burning Louisville to the ground.
Listen, man, I'm not trying to be in defense of protests, like violent protests, but let's acknowledge this one thing, right? Because 2 police officers were shot during these riots. They were okay now, I believe, but they were shot. I've said it before and I say it again. This is a very complex situation, but if the laws were more just and fair and police officers had better interactions with people in general, not even the black community, I guarantee you there would be less danger and less tensions in the United States and less danger towards police officers. Okay? We have to kind of keep this in mind.
2 officers have been shot. Sweetie, in case you can't tell, we don't have a white supremacy issue. We have a black supremacy issue.
I don't know. But that's just that's just bizarre.
Always, we find out that all the information
Right, so we've debunked that. Then there's, I think, a part 2.
I'm gonna say this.
Part 2.
As calm as I can. Your ghetto trash criminal behaviors.
See, that's so incendiary, right? I can say words. That's just so intentionally aggressive.
Not gonna help anyone respect you. Follow the law! Stop shooting people and respect our police officers if you want respect. I
think it's a little bit less, if we use the Breonna Taylor case as a case of the way that police officers interact with people, not black people, we can see that there is some kind of an issue where police officers aren't our bosses. They're our protectors. And I think that there's an argument to be made that police officers have been acting more like our bosses than our protectors than they should be. Just saying. Okay? Let's get back to Christian Walker. That was just 2 videos. We're already going crazy. It's pretty pathetic that every time Democrats don't get their way, we have to expect mass rioting as if they're mentally deranged, pouting children. Now, I'm gonna give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt for this one, okay? Because when Trump won in 2016, there were schools that had circles where they cried. I'm not even kidding. There's colleges near me that were crying because Trump won. So if we apply that to that, sure, he has an argument to be made. However, to the Breonna Taylor case, I think that rioting is justifiable. I'm just saying, it's hard to be peaceful. I was very right. I got incredibly hyped up when I heard the news from that situation. And so I'm a white, fat guy that's not even close to their community. I couldn't even imagine how they would feel. So even if you disagree with looting and rioting, and you're more of in favor of protesting, keep in mind that it's sometimes you really your emotions take hold and they go crazy, man. And you have to be somewhat empathetic in understanding that. Okay, and let's keep something else in mind. Okay, a lot of times people will say, "Hey, listen, rioting's never justified." Somebody had mentioned in my chat. I understand that. I don't necessarily disagree, but peaceful protesting. The biggest peaceful protest that black Americans have done is kneeling for the flag. And you guys had a fucking meltdown over that. And while that upsets me to kneel on the flag or to burn the flag or disrespect the flag, it hurts me because the America's worked for me. And that's what really where our patriotism comes from. A lot of us, people who identify as Americans and get genuinely upset when people burn and deface the flag or kneel for the flag, it's because we love this country, because this country has worked for us. But what you need to understand, you need to take a step back from your emotions, which you're exhibiting emotions which make you contest their protests, right? As you say, oh, you can't feel emotions and you can't riot. You're dismissing their protest, and the reason and so you're not understanding that the reason that they're protesting is because they don't feel like America has worked for them. So rather than contributing to the divide of American society, let's figure out a way to move forward where America works for everybody. Okay? Burp. So I get that. He's in pretty good shape. Good for him. Somebody said kneeling just creates more divide than justice. You listen, man, you can't say that. You listen. That's the thing. Let me ask you a question, man. Let me just ask you my whole chat question. If you guys don't like kneeling for the flag, what do you find to be an appropriate way to protest the injustices that Black Americans have faced? Even if you don't agree that they face injustice, like, what's a good way to you? What's a good way to you? What gets people listening? Kneeling for the flag gets you to listen, even if you don't agree. What do you want them to do? Sit at home and write a letter to their local congressman? Come on. It's effective because it gets you to think about it. It gets your mind going, okay? You guys need an exercise in empathy and understanding why people, do some particular types of protests. Like I said, it upsets me when people deface and disrespect the flag, but we need to remove ourselves from the situation. We need to understand why they're doing that rather than getting angry and basing, having an emotional response to it. Because if you're going to have an issue with, them having an emotional response to Breonna Taylor dying, then I have an issue with you having an emotional response when somebody kneels for the flag. It's the same situation, guys. You guys have to be more open-minded about this stuff, okay? Society isn't easy. It's not easy to exist together. You guys need to be more uncomfortable, and you need to be more comfortable with being uncomfortable, okay? All right? I'm not trying to, at you. I'm not trying to go after you. I don't think you're a bad person. I understand why you'd say something like that, but, this is hard work, and if you want to be part of the solution to this country, you guys need to do the hard work, and that hard work means making yourself feel uncomfortable, okay? And if you can do that, you will absolutely be a net gain for this country. It doesn't matter if you're conservative or progressive, okay? Anyway, nice dancing.
We're nominating
Let's
a conservative judge to SCOTUS, and if you don't like the justice, then leave.
I mean, listen. So clearly, he's very antagonistic, but, I don't really see an issue with Oh, it's just so funny to me. He really commits to it. Listen, I would say that there's a bit of an issue because I see it as a bit of an issue only because they held Obama's seat for a while, and what's the guy? I can't remember the specific senator that said if the they held and I know he talks about this video soon, but they held Obama's appointment for the Supreme Court until the next president, and Trump got to put it in there. And they said that if it happened again, if the last term of a president where there was a Supreme Court justice up for nomination, we're going to hold it again, right? I don't remember his name. Lindsey Graham said that, right? Right? Let's see if we can find. So Lindsey Graham. Let's see if I can find the hold. Let's see if we can find it exactly. Okay, so we'll leave this one here for this. Get out of here.
This will stand.
Okay, we're gonna hold this for now because I think he gets into this, but
Leave the country. Woo! Supreme Court. Trump picking. Yeah.
Listen, a lot of people are upset that they might overturn Roe v. Wade. I don't think it's going to happen. And the only reason I don't think it's going to happen is because 75% of people in the United States don't want it to happen. So there's a lot of people that are in favor of more harsher restrictions, specifically, relegating it to first term, but nobody wants to overturn it. Honestly, most people don't. And I think that conservatives benefit from Democrats holding these fair positions because then they don't have to be I know abortion is a net gain. Unfortunately, it's a necessary evil. But I'm just saying, maybe I'm just speculating, but I think so are other people.
Okay, I'm already about to pop off on the next Democrat who says, well, Mitch McConnell waited until after the
Yeah, here's the
2016
video.
election to confirm a Supreme Court justice, so we have to do that again. No, that's not the full story. The full story is in 2016, Democrats had the presidency and the House, Republicans had the Senate. Obama nominated Merrick Garland for the Supreme Court, and since Republicans had the Senate and the Senate confirmed Supreme Court justices, Mitch McConnell, since it was not a politically expedient time and it was within our constitutional right, said we'll wait till after the 2016 election to put a Supreme Court justice in. Had the Democrats had the Senate, they would have rammed a Supreme Court justice in there. They would have totally confirmed someone. Well, guess what? Now Republicans have the presidency and the Senate, so we will be jamming an ultra-conservative judge into the Supreme Court, and all you liberals can go cry about it. We're over you. We're over your riots. We're over your version of the U.S. It's time to bring back law and order. Supreme Court, love it.
Okay, well, I'm sure that's an accurate representation. Oh, first and foremost, like, I don't think that we should be contributing to the political divide by, like, being like, yes, my side won. Like, hyper-conservatism is just as bad as hyper-progressivism. They're both dog shit, okay? It's not good. You don't want a hyper-conservative in there, just like I don't want a hyper-progressive. But I want to play this clip because I think this is a very
Okay,
important...
I'm already about to pop off.
Shut up. All right. That's not what I wanted to look at. Here we go.
This will stand the test of the time. This is the last year of a lame duck president. And if Ted Cruz or Donald Trump get to be president, they've all asked us not to confirm or take up a selection by President Obama. So if a vacancy occurs in their last year of their first term, guess what? You will use their words against them.
There you go.
I want you to use my words against me.
Boom.
If
There you
there's
go.
a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say, Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president, whoever it might be, make that nomination, and you could use my words against me, and you'd be absolutely right. We're setting a precedent here today, Republicans are, that in the
Big yikes, guys.
last year, at least of a lame duck 8-year term, I would say it's going to be a 4-year term, that you're not going to fill a vacancy of the Supreme Court based on what we're doing here today. That's going to be the new rule. When y'all change the rules about appellate judges and district court judges to get your way, I thought it was a really abuse of power. And what you have done here is you've made the caucuses, the Republican and Democratic caucuses, are now not going to have to reach across the aisle when it comes to appellate judges and district court judges to get input from us, or we get input from you. So what does that mean? That we're going to pick the most hard-ass people we can find and dare somebody in the conference to vote against that person. You're going to have the most liberal members of your caucus pushing you to pick the most liberal judges because you don't need to have to reach across the aisle to get any of our input. And we'll do the same. So over time, the judiciary is going to be more ideologically driven because the process in the Senate now does not require you to get outside your own party. So I'll be fighting talk radio when somebody on my side puts up a nut job, and they will. And I'll fight if I think they're truly a nut job. And it's going to happen on your side too.
Rather fair, actually, quite a bit of respect. I just, you know,
The next Democrat.
the wordage that he used suggests like, if only if they're a nut job. I don't know if this woman's a nut job, but hey, guys, not sure if that aged well, you know. So, you know, even if Trump does win the next term, he should have to wait. He shouldn't be able to nominate somebody. I would say based off of that. Fair is fair, guys. Imagine he said that, and he's like, "There's no way that's gonna happen in 4 years." And guess what? It happened in 4 years. Not poggers. All right. Well, you know.
Christian, you do actually have a point. We did actually ban controlled burning in the early 1900s. You can answer this for me. If we've been banning prescribed fires and restricting logging since the 1900s, why wasn't this a bigger issue 45 years ago? If climate change is not the problem, then please explain to me how we've had 10 of the largest fires in California's recorded history.
So first and foremost, I just want to say that, like, there is, first of all, I would say there is a climate issue when it comes to all the fires in California, but there is also, like, a mismanagement issue. And, like, controlled burnings are supposed to take out, like, a lot of the brush. Like, you know, without human beings, forests naturally light on fire. All the brush gets cleared. It's actually healthy for the forest. And apparently we haven't been doing that. We haven't been taking up that issue. We haven't been, going with our own controlled burnings. And now, yes, climate change is an impact. And yes, it is a big issue. But if we had managed things the right way for how long we were supposed to, it wouldn't be as big of an issue. Okay, so we can't just blame climate change on everything, even though it is a very real thing. We also need to blame ourselves for when we fuck up.
Claire, you either didn't finish my video or you purposely left information out. California
He's such a dick.
has some of the oldest power lines in the country.
I'm sure that's true too.
In 2018, over half of the wildfires in California were started by old power lines. Instead of jumping to the climate change conclusion, how about we unban logging, unban natural burning, and update the power lines?
I don't know why logging would matter. The burning, updating, the power lines, sure, but like, what do you think we should? Because it sounds like what you just said is like, hey guys, you know what would really help forest fires? If there was no forest. That's what he just said. He's just like, if we don't have forests, guys, there's no forest fires. We figured it out. So I wouldn't have left that one in there. Okay? I wouldn't have left the logging part in there. Just take the forest away, no more forest fires. All right, guys? You got a problem with the climate? Take away the climate. Okay? You got a problem with something? Remove it. Your kid cut his knee? Throw him in the garbage. Then you don't have to worry about his knee. Fuck him. Okay? I mean, he's right, technically. But I think we need our forests. But that's very big brain of you.
We would be having far fewer wildfires. And you mentioned record heat waves at the end of your video. I love popsicles. They really help cool you off.
God, he's so easy to hate. I don't even dislike the guy, honestly. I think he's a little too intense, but I don't dislike the guy. But my thing is like, she said this whole climate change thing, and he was like, you know what my argument with climate change is? Eat a fucking popsicle, bitch. That was what he basically said. Like, he didn't give a shit. He didn't care. He wasn't like, yeah, climate change is an issue, but like, you got to deal with all the other stuff you're messing up. He's like, and when it comes to your point about climate change, I love sucking on phallic popsicles. I'm just saying, bro. I'm just saying.
Professional athletes running around with criminal rapists on your helmets and telling half of your viewers that we're all racist because we don't kneel down to your BLM Marxist ideology doesn't make you woke. It makes you dumb. Your paycheck's gonna take a hit because you ostracized every conservative that buys your tickets. Professional athletes.
Jesus. What the fuck? That was intense. I'm just saying. That was very intense what he just said. I don't know that I necessarily disagree. I don't think it makes you dumb to push BLM. I think that you could have a conversation about how people, they tokenize black people and black issues, and they go PLM when they don't really care. But I think that was rather intense. I'm not really sure what he's talking about when it comes to rapists. I really don't know. But Jesus, that was the framing could have been better.
Saying you don't want a border wall is like saying you don't want a fence around your house. It's deranged. Saying you want to defund the police is like...
To the first point, I don't know, man. Like, I understand the analogy when it's like, hey, like, you don't want a border wall? Well, you want a fence around your house so people can't get in? I think, listen, some people will be like, well, they'll just come in through Canada because it's like $400 for a plane flight to Mexico to Canada, whatever. When it comes to drug dealers, they'll probably find a way anyway. My biggest thing is like, wouldn't we want to utilize technology more? I think technology is the issue. We have technologies that can like much more accurately detect things on the border. I think that like a border wall is just like inefficient, ineffective, and dated. We would be better spending those resources on like maybe more manpower, because like a lot of times like drug dealers they'll come up through Mexico. And they'll dump like 100 people, not 100, but they'll dump a bunch of people, sometimes 100 people on the border. And then the border agents have to go tend to those 100 people rather than like the car full of drugs, right? Because they're undermanned. I don't think a wall will necessarily help that. I don't think the cost of it is positive. And I also think that it could have a lot of very negative economic or rather environmental impacts. So yeah, honestly, man, I'm just saying also, He said it'll cost $5 billion. My understanding is that it would cost upwards of $100+ billion and take many, many years because the estimates were very, very like face value, and they didn't really take a lot of things into consideration. So I'm just saying, better ways to do it.
Like saying you don't want to have anyone to call when someone breaks into your home.
Right, the defund the police thing, like they'd say like, oh, it's about reorienting the funds. You know what I was saying. Defund the police is the dumb idea. You should definitely like fighting poverty with, and then having the ability to scale back in certain ways. That makes sense, but the defund the police narrative, not great.
It's deranged. Furthermore, what I find to be so hypocritical is that politicians who are against the border wall, oh, let's just have drones so we can watch the illegal immigrants run across the border.
Oh, it's cheaper.
Who are for
And it will happen faster.
defunding the police, sure do have big fat walls in front of their houses. Nancy Pelosi sure do have their own armed security when they go to events. It's not thinking with a sound mind. We're not canceling immigration, we're canceling illegal immigration. We're saying come through the front door. You have to wait in line to come in. And as far as the police, I have an idea. Follow the law.
Okay. All right. Well, sometimes it's not easy to follow the law. This guy's a little obnoxious, but you know. All right. I would say that if we're going to commit to a wall, put it around the entire United States, except for California. Leave that shit hanging in the breeze. All right? Put a whole wall around the whole U.S., 100 feet high. All right? Fuck California. Boom. Easy. Not even a wall. Let's just put a fucking glass dome over it. Okay? And then let's like control everything. Like let's control the rain and everything, and no more hailstorms. Okay, just letting you know. And someone said the crime rate went down in Camden when they defunded the police. Of course, crime goes down when you don't have people to catch the crime. Just keep that in mind, guys.
When I woke up this morning, people were tweeting all buildings matter. So let me explain to you the difference between all lives matter and all buildings matter being tweeted by radical BLM terrorists.
Oh my god, bro. Oh my. Listen, man, before you get into this crazy rhetoric nonsense that you're going to spew, understand this. All life matters 100% of the time that I've seen it used is a way to dismiss Black Lives Matter. It's not a way, it's not like educating or having an educated standpoint about how BLM doesn't actually help or something like that. It's like, oh, black people matter? Well, so does everyone else, right? Because a true All Lives Matter organization would be like, oh yeah, black people matter too, and they're being treated worse than other people in the country. So let's like do something about that. But that's not what it is. It's like, hey, shut the hell up, BLM. Right? That's what it is. So at its core, All Lives Matter is a dismissal of Black Lives Matter. Just like at its core, All Buildings Matter is a dismissal of the tragedy of 9/11. I'm just saying, man. So it's not different. So let's see how you wrap your mind around it.
9/11 2001, innocent people of all races died, and people of all races came together to mourn those deaths in the country. There is no systemic killing of black people.
Well, let's just keep in mind that the Muslims were targeted specifically after 9/11. It seems like you forgot that part, right?
By the police. Actually, more non-blacks are dying by the police, even though blacks commit a higher percentage of murder within the country. People oppose BLM because...
Sure, I guess. I suppose that's true. But again, I would say that black Americans commit more crime because of the disproportionality of their poverty. And also like a particular culture that comes from that systemic racism that makes them not care about anything and spend their money like shit, and also have like a grievance against the government because the government has intentionally kept them down in the past. And even if that's now illegal, now it wasn't for a long time. It's you know, it's one of those things. Like, let's do like a mind experiment. This is completely unintentional, but I remember. Okay, I need to be very expressive here. What I'm about to say is not. Okay, it's the example I remember. Okay, I remember watching an example on like TV or on Instagram, just where they had. Okay, this has nothing to do with race. I'm just being very explicit. Okay, the example was monkeys that they put in a cage. Okay, again, this has nothing to do with race. Okay, this is the example they used. Stop. I'm not kidding. Okay, stop, okay? All right? Nothing, just stop. I have to be very clear because this is not racially motivated. It's simply just the example they used, okay? I know you guys are going to go, oh, I'm not saying that. I'm not making that comparison. Okay, just listen to me. Just shut the fuck up and listen to me for a second, okay? All right, and at a zoo, they used monkeys, right? And what they did was, well, they put, like, I think something at the top of a ladder, right? And when a monkey tried to climb up the ladder, they, like, they shocked all the monkeys in the cages, right? So they would, over time, they would remove one monkey and they would put another one in. And every time they went in there, the new monkey would try to climb up the cage. They'd get shocked, right? So eventually the monkey started beating the shit out of the new monkey that was trying to climb up the cage, right? And eventually, after you replaced all the monkeys, they didn't even know why they were doing that. They were just beating the shit out of the monkey because he was trying to climb up the ladder, right? Parallel to this, right? Even at best, if your argument is that black people are no longer victims of systemic racism because of the history they have with it and their grandparents and parents passing down the very the understanding or their hatred towards particular systems, that's going to carry on. Okay? It has nothing to do with race. So even if your argument's like, oh, systemic racism doesn't exist anymore, it doesn't have an impact, which I disagree with, the mentality is still passed down because we have wronged black people in the past, okay? Just keep that in the mind. Just keep that in mind, all right? Maybe that was a bad example, but you get my point, okay? That was tough, all right? All right, it had nothing to do with race. Oh, God damn it. You guys are obnoxious, okay? I can't even make it. It was an okay comparison. It enough. Oh my God! You know, we're moving on. We're moving on here, okay? The point is that even if you believe that systemic racism no longer has a negative impact on black people, think about their ancestors who had legitimate grievances against the systems in place, and they passed that hatred down, that justifiable hatred, and so it stays in the culture. That's the point I'm trying to make, okay?
Because they're preaching a false narrative of innocent black people dying at a higher rate than other races. False.
Sure, sometimes they are. Again, roots of systemic racism. Right, Michael Brown. Let's talk about Michael Brown. He charged a police officer after he stole something. It was justifiable. The shooting him was justifiable. But the same DOJ report that confirmed that his shooting, the police officer shooting him was justifiable, also said the police officers in that area violated the First, Fourth, and 14th Amendment rights of the black citizens in that community. So if you don't think, right, and what was that, 10 years ago? If you don't think that systems at place, which are police officers, are the perpetuators of some of those systems, do you don't think that systems at place treating black people lesser than is going to cause them to lash out or become more impoverished? Because one of the things that they did was over-ticket them. If you don't think that's going to have a negative impact, which would instigate an issue like that, I think you're very ignorant.
False. American-loving patriots do believe all buildings matter. We're not the ones going around burning buildings down. It's BLM terrorists.
That point was kind of funny.
So yes, all lives matter, all buildings matter, and we're mourning all the lives that were lost, all the innocent lives, unlike the criminal black men, all the innocent lives that were lost in 9/11. We're also mourning all the police officers that lost their life in 9/11. Back the blue.
Okay, well, listen, I hate to be that guy, but come on, man. Like, I don't know. Come on, man.
On this,
you get the pattern we're seeing here, guys. You get the pattern we're seeing here, guys. Back to blue, sure, but there are certainly ways in which police officers do take advantage of there's systems in place that promote a negative society. Like there, for instance, in a lot of states, it's not illegal for a police officer to engage in sexual activity with a prisoner, which in my opinion is sexual assault, because the power dynamic very much favors the police officer. Things like that, like again, we'll go back to no-knock warrants, police not having to wear body cameras. These are things that honestly I would say are wrong and things that need to be changed about police officers.
This week's episode of BLM is a bunch of BSLM. 8-year-old Dejor Wilson shot dead this past weekend. She wasn't shot by a white man. Black man, where are all my black is so beautiful? If black is so beautiful, can you stop shooting our kids?
Why am I a bad white supremacist? Because I'm against father absence, I'm against kids getting shot, I'm against pedophilia, calling out ghetto hip-hop black...
I would say that, like, when that happened, nobody really cared. And, like, that, like, listen, guys, you guys have to understand something, okay? Black on black crime rates are relevant when it comes to these things. Like, I know a lot of people be like, oh, what about black on black crime? It's so high. And then you're like, well, it's just their surroundings, bro. Proportionately, black people kill more black people. Black people kill more white people as well, my understanding. All right? Again, I would say that all that added up, you accumulate that, and it's like systemic racism is the issue. But like the only way to stop systemic racism, there's two different ways to stop systemic racism. You have to provide opportunity and equity to black Americans, and you also have to deal with the culture that has been created due to systemic racism that's very toxic to black communities. Okay? Just keep that in mind. There's a culture that does advocate for single motherhood rates, which does come from the welfare trap, in my opinion. Okay? Because, you know, when you're on welfare, you're encouraged to not get married. And, like, I don't care about marriage per se, but then, like, if you don't have a strong father figure, if you need a strong father and mother figure in your life, and if you don't have that, you're going to grow up like shit. And just to be clear, 2 men and 2 women can have a strong masculine and feminine role. I'm not saying that you can't have that, but you need to have like a masculine and feminine role, in my opinion, in a relationship. And you're not getting that when, you know, fathers are leaving. Okay. You know, there is the encouragement of buying frivolous things, you know, like a lot of jewelry or spending money, you know, not saving your money. We need strong community leaders to offset that. Okay. And there also is an issue when black Americans, they get like very rich from doing, you know, whether it's music career or, you know, but music, it doesn't matter anything, honestly, music career or like a sports career, they buy all this frivolous bullshit. They don't necessarily help their community. And then like people who become business owners, black business owners, sometimes they don't even share that wealth and go like, hey, let's invest and like hire more black people, which I'd say is a way to, you know, provide equity to black people. I'm just saying there's an issue there. We have to keep that in mind. Hold on a second, guys. Let's see. All right. Not very poggers. Holy shit. All right. Jesus Christ. Holy crap. Wow, sorry about that. Anyway, let's get back into this.
Black culture is not white supremacy. That's being there for the black community. That's wanting to see the black community rise. Kids getting shot is not helping the black community. Kids getting shot by black men is not helping the black community. If you support this type of behavior, you're a black supremacist. If you defend pedophiles, rapists, criminals, child shooters, domestic abusers simply because they're black, you're a black supremacist and you're holding the black community back. Trap.
There are some situations where, like, BLM defends people who shouldn't, or really indefensible, I'm just saying.
Dear white liberal.
The problem is that you roped Breonna Taylor into that later on. So, like, you know, you're dismissing every person BLM, you know, chooses as a champion. Whereas BLM is choosing everyone. You're being just as hyperbolic in the other direction. BLM chooses every black on black or black in an instance where a police officer and a black person have a negative altercation, and then you completely dismiss it regardless of the reality.
There's nothing more racist than a white liberal who thinks they're blacker than a black conservative. I don't need you thinking for me. I don't need you speaking for me, making choices. I have an education.
Fair.
I'm completely self-autonomous. It wasn't you who owned slaves. It wasn't me who was a slave.
I mean, even if I disagree with him overall, like, that's a good point. We do need people in general to stop forcing people to believe a particular thing. All right? I'm just saying. Okay? It is annoying when you have, like, you know, Emily BLMA cab telling you as a black person that you're not black if you believe a particular thing.
Stop apologizing for your whiteness. Stop thinking your whiteness holds me back in any way. It doesn't, and that's offensive that you think it does. It's offensive that you think you're a roadblock and my way to success. You do not block anything for me. I'm not voting for your Jim Crow Joe Biden candidate, and you do not get to be upset at that fact. Dear white liberal.
Well, it sounds like you acknowledge systemic racism if you don't like the Jim Crow, you know, and whatnot.
Democrats, why is your vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris running and telling Jacob Blake, a sexual assault, domestic abuser felon, that she's proud of him? Ghetto trash. Your party supports criminals more than they do law-abiding citizens.
right.
I'm going to be voting for Trump. Law and order, period.
So I think we get the general gist of Christian Walker. Look at some of his.
Dear white liberals, there's nothing more racist than a
Oh, we already looked at that one. See about any other big hits like this
Anybody
one.
who honestly cares about black people could not support Black Lives Matter. It's a
Okay, let's rewatch. I'm just gonna hold on.
Anybody who honestly cares about black people could not support Black Lives Matter. It's a terrorist organization, and
How is it a terrorist organization? See, this is what I don't understand, right? Right? At its core, there are certainly riots and lootings happening under the guise of Black Lives Matter. But Black Lives Matter isn't specifically telling people to do that. And I say that because if you're and when we bring it to TikTok, if you're a person who doesn't think that Denelli should be canceled because what he's saying or doing shouldn't okay, let me explain this. Black Lives Matter is an advocation for black people, right? And there are people who are weaponizing that claim to loot and riot. Now, we could have a conversation about maybe whether they should or shouldn't. It's irrelevant. Because if at the end of the day, we agree that they are misassigning the value of BLM and they're weaponizing it. Just like people, when it comes to the Denelli, who misassigned the value of what he was saying and weaponized it to be homophobic and bigoted. Right? That's my point. Okay, if you're a person who doesn't think Trump was responsible for like the MAGA bomber because his rhetoric or his words shouldn't, he shouldn't be held responsible for people who misinterpret and weaponize his words, then you can't be a person who calls BLM a terrorist organization. That's what I'm trying to say, okay?
personally, I think it's the KKK in blackface.
I don't think that's happening.
Change your name to policehaters.com because that's what you do. You hate police. You're not about police brutality. Black Lives
What the hell is he on?
Matter should be about all black lives. It should be about black on black crime in Chicago. It should be about father absence and how that affects black children.
Sure, I agree with that. I agree with the idea of contesting the negative black, I'm not gonna say culture, like some of the community ideas. What did I call it before? Get my point, right? There's negatives to the well, I guess you'd call it like, Black American culture, impoverished Black American culture. There's negatives there we have to acknowledge, but we can't really deal with those until after we provide the opportunity.
Black Lives Matter is a disgusting name for an organization that hates black men.
Why is it a disgusting name? Black Lives Matter. What's disgusting about that?
And overall hates black people. You're a domestic terrorist
I don't think that's true. What?
organization.
What's the basis of that claim?
We are trained Marxists.
When racism
I mean, listen, I'm not a particular fan of Marxism, but that doesn't make you that doesn't mean that you're fundamentally bad because you believe in a different political ideology. If you exist with the current political ideology in a non-radical way, even if you are in support of another one, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person, even if you may or may not be ignorant. I'm just saying. So, stop using the words like Marxism and socialism as like trigger words to completely dismiss an individual and what they're saying.
direct racism wasn't working for the Democrat Party because Republicans came in and put an end to Jim Crow laws, put an end to slavery. It was the Republicans who championed civil rights. The Democrats had...
I mean, who cares? I'm just saying. Listen, both parties nowadays are not, I don't think, doing the best they could for Black Americans. Republicans, conservatives, right? Progressives were the ones who freed, or championed, black rights. Let's be honest here. Like, I get there was the party swap kind of happened. Okay, guys? Realistically speaking, what I would say is that back in the day, back in like the 60s, each party, the Democrats and Republicans had their own progressives, moderates and conservatives. It's not that there was necessarily a party swap as much as it was that like we conservatives gravitated towards Republicans and progressives gravitated towards Democrats. Okay, that's kind of what happened, right? And we can't sit here and be like constantly, come on, like we need to, I mean, you're kind of misassigning the situation. That's another form of identity politics. You can't be like, hey, I don't like it when black people engage in identity politics, but then, which is what he's doing by saying he doesn't like BLM, but then be like, hey, Democrats are all terrible people because they're Democrats. That's engaging in identity politics.
To switch to, okay, well, we can't be directly racist anymore, so let's just pretend we like black people. Anybody
What?
who honestly cares
I would say that Democrats pander for black votes, but like Republicans just don't think they can get the black votes. They just don't care about black people.
about black
This feels longer than a minute.
people could not support black
Oh yeah, no, it was over. Okay, you get my point. So I'm just looking at some of his more popular videos.
If Trump is such a racist, then why did he invite me and my dark black dad to his acceptance speech and put us up in his Trump hotel room in Washington, D.C.? Oh, that's right, because he's not a racist and y'all are just deranged. Get over it and love your great president and stay at Trump hotels. Bye.
So what I would say to that is, first of all, I don't think Trump is really racist. But what I would say is, like, anyone's just going to be like, yeah, because, like, they would call you a pick-me black guy, right? And I would say that, like, I wouldn't call you a pick-me black guy. I would say that you're kind of a person who's very divisive and, like, ignorant and very loud and, like, you're popular, so they're going to choose you, right? Just saying. Also, your dad's rich. Your dad's like a prominent figure. So actually, I don't think it has anything to do with what I just said. I think that I don't even know the context of what was going on, but your dad's probably just your Trump's like, hey, I want to meet. You want to meet your dad? I don't know. You get my point. Who cares? Let's see if there's any more popular videos here. I don't really think so. This
The
one's
George Floyd body cam footage didn't justify his death. What it did was it told me that you lied to me, media. You told me that it was an act of racism. Well, we all watched for 18 minutes as George Floyd resisted arrest and acted like a 2-year-old.
Well, Jesus, man, come on. Like, listen, George Floyd died, and like from the start, it was rather obvious it wasn't a race-related issue. The reality is that tensions were high because people were home and they were bored from the coronavirus, and they were already very scared and upset. And the media saw the George Floyd situation. They took it, they weaponized it, and they pushed it as an issue of racism, systemic racism, when realistically speaking, it was an issue of police brutality, right? Very real, very serious issue that we all should have acknowledged. But like this whole dismissal of a man's death, like just stop. Like he resisted, absolutely. He deserved to go to jail, sure, maybe, but like kneeling on someone's neck for 8 minutes and then basically being like he was a 2-year-old, so he deserved to die. Would you kill a 2-year-old, Christian Walker? Come on.
Refusing to cooperate with the police. You weren't concerned about the knee being on his neck because incidents
I think everybody was concerned with that. I'm just saying.
have happened like that before. You were concerned with the color of the knee and the neck. You pushed out a false narrative and whipped up the USA to uplift this black criminal who held guns to pregnant women when it had nothing to do with racism. So leftists and black militants, you can run around stomping your feet and throwing a tantrum saying we're trying to justify his death. Nobody's trying to justify his death.
The framing of your video kind of does say, yeah, he deserved to die. Right? You took everything very much out of context. And you didn't really provide it. And like I feel like in situations like this, you shouldn't be screaming, man.
Saying that you lied.
You're like, yeah, he's held a gun to a pregnant woman. These things all may be true. But come on, like, you know, there's a way to contest that narrative that it was like a black issue, which it wasn't, I don't think, without being so hyperbolic and divisive.
It wasn't racism.
He should have never had his neck kneeled on, right? I see if you ended it off with let me reinforce the idea that it was a police brutality issue, then maybe I could have agreed with you. But you intentionally left that out because you're more interested in reducing George Floyd than actually talking about the real situation. Excuse me. All right, so
This is the most pathetic comeback that I've ever gotten. My parents have known the Trumps since they were 19. My dad's a dark black man and my mom's an Italian woman. He treated them with nothing but respect. I know the Trumps. They love our country. They care about the betterment of America.
I mean, maybe. That might be true. I mean, I don't think that Trump's inherently racist.
And Trump's...
But I also don't give a shit about that. So I think that's where we're going to end off with that. What the hell is this?
70 shot in Chicago this weekend, 12.
Yeah. More, I get it. It's just going to be more like, hey, there's an issue in black communities. We've already acknowledged that. So yeah, that's Christian Walker. Listen, if I had to sum him up, I'd say that he's a guy who is very much obsessed with the shouting and screaming and the attention that comes with it, rather than being contextually accurate and trying to provide his commentary in a way that's non-divisive. So.
I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.